Well, we're going to continue with laying out our form blocks and cutting blocks. And I've just taken a piece of, I think this is probably 3/16 tempered hardboard, used it, and here's the drawing that we started out with. I am going to make another little note on this because I'm going to trim off the outside edge of this, so I'm going to lose my reference line. So this is our 210 millimeter transition. And this is our 170 millimeter transition. And that's just the transition, as we said before, that goes around to narrow down to our 3 millimeter nose rib dimensions there. So I'm just going to glue these together, right like that, and we'll cut it out. The reason for doing the tempered hardboard is I'm going to consider it a master template, but more important, all I've got to do is get smooth, proper contours on this piece of 3/16 inch material, and then we'll cut our 3/4 inch blanks with a router. So we'll just use this as a router template is all we're doing. And it's still a master form block. If something happens to our other form blocks, or we have to remake them at some point in time, why, hopefully we've got these stored away where they're not going to be lost or damaged or anything, and easy to store, and we can produce another set that will be exactly like the set that we've already produced. So I just adhered onto the material, whether it's the plywood, tempered hardboard in this case, with 3M Super 77 adhesive. There again, link in the description below. You can get it at any of your big box stores, or you can order it off of Amazon, which is what the link will be that I'll leave down below for you. And it works real good. Coat both sides with it, give it a chance to set for a little bit, and then you stick them together and it's a permanent bond. If you just spray one surface and let it tack off just a little bit and then put it together, it's considered a temporary bond and you can peel it off. In this case, I want it to be permanent. That's probably set up enough. We'll just stick them together. Okay, we can take that to the bandsaw and cut it out. Okay, that's all that's necessary to have our cutout there. We'll go to the sander and we'll sand it out. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think I'll go and get a nice fresh razor blade just to trim that edge and see, but it looks like we've hit our transition points. It's a little bit harder to do, of course, using a Sharpie. As I said before, it leaves you an awful wide line, so it's kind of tough to know exactly where you want to cut to, but from looking at it, we got a nice smooth contour all the way around. That looks like it will do the job very nicely. So let's trim that up, we'll take a look at it, and we'll start forming the form blocks. Well, here's our form block pattern, we'll call it. I've already drilled our 1/8 inch tooling hole here and a 1/4 inch tooling hole here. Now, the reason for doing it this way with only a 1/4 inch hole is no matter how I decide to do that, whether I fly cut it or whether I cut it with a hole saw, that is, both of my tools are piloted with a 1/4 inch hole, so, or a 1/4 inch bit. So that's the proper hole for that. Plus I can use a 1/4 inch bolt to bolt those assemblies together. We use the 1/8 inch alignment hole, or the 1/8 inch tooling hole, as an alignment. We'll just put a pin in there when we router cut our form block. And when we cut our cutting templates, we'll use the same tooling holes. We'll go ahead and drill them and put a pin in them. We'll drill them here with 1/8 inch and drill them there for 1/4 inch, and that will be our assembly points. Now, the reason I cut 2 pieces of this temper hardware is we're also going to want a cutting template out of this. And we can do the same thing. We'll lay it out here. And what I'm going to do first is go ahead and drill those 2 holes. And I'll do that off camera, but we're just drilling holes. I'm going to match drill them off of this. Alright, for this little exercise, all we're doing is using our drill bits to align them. So now we can't go any place there. So this is our cutting template. This is going to be our actual form template, but we're still considering this our master. Now, to get our cutting template, what we're going to do is we want to trace it all the way around to show our form block, or show our outline for the block itself. And we can use that as a reference, especially around the nose where we're going to narrow it down to that 3 millimeters. And what we're going to do is mark our 170 millimeter line and mark our 210 millimeter transition line. And I need to extend those lines. Let me grab a square. And we should be able to, within reason, since this is our bottom reference point, we should be able to extend that out our 17 millimeters, and that's where it'll start narrowing down there. And we should be able to do the same on the top. Well, maybe we can. And that's our line extended out. Now, to get our 17 millimeters, we can measure that out. We can do all kinds of crap. The easy way to do it is to find you a washer. And you want your 17 millimeter distance there. And all you do is hold that up against your form that you've already made. And run it around. And that's going to give you your proper edge distance. It's going to match that rib. Now, in your corners here, you're going to want a relief hole at these 2 corners. And for your router template, you'll cut them out of there. So anyway, there's your layout for your cutting template as well, with the exception of, let's do this. We want a 3 millimeter spacing around the nose. And normally I'd say do this with a small rule, and I should have the plans out here looking at them just to be sure, and I will before we actually cut this one out. But anyway, you can take your gum, run your lines around there to give you a nice smooth radius. All the way around. almost there, but not quite. That's a little bit better right there. Well, we had generated our master template, and we generated our cutting template. Now, when I went back in and looked at the plans, why Zenith actually shows this as just a straight line, whereas I arced it both here and here. And what that would do is it would meld into that 3mm extra radius around the corner, and then it would just be straight. I'm going to leave it as a contour because that's kind of what I was talking about leaving extra material. I don't think it's that much material, doesn't make that big a difference, and it'll give me a little bit extra to make sure we've got proper edge distance if there's a rivet up there closer to that nose. And it seems like there's one right in that area. I think we've got a flute right in here and probably a flute right in here someplace, and they want one right up front or one here, and we want a rivet in front, something like that. So I'm going to leave that a little bit extra material. I'm going to leave that cutting template for now. We'll actually need the cutting template before we need the form template, but the form template I still consider to be the master. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and build the form blocks, both left and right, for this. And I went ahead and cut a couple of blanks. This is 3/4 inch. This is what they call sand ply, and it's an inexpensive plywood, but it's got lots and lots of layers in it, and it doesn't seem to have too many voids. So it may be a good option to use for form blocks. We'll try a couple and see how it holds up. But anyway, for demonstration purposes, that's what I'm going to use. I went ahead and cut them out. We've got lines just a little bit proud of where it goes. So our template will sit on there just like that. And we've got edge, we've got distance all the way around it. So let's grab a couple of clamps. And I'm just going to clamp those together because I want to drill our 2 holes here. And I'm going to go over and drill this tooling hole first, this 1/8 inch tooling hole that we've already drilled in the master form here. So I'm going to go ahead and drill this hole and drill that one, and I'll do those off camera. And then we're going to go back and countersink the back. So let me get that done and we'll be right back. I took it over to the drill press. I drilled my 1/8 inch pilot hole first, and then I took a 1/8 inch pin and I put it in there. Now that pin is only drilled partially through, with the idea being that this half of the blank will be the bottom. Well, yeah, it will be the bottom. And that pin will sit in there like that. And then when we drill the top half, that will be an alignment pin for that. And on the back side, why I've countersunk it just with a 1/2 inch bit to hold a bolt. And that will set right in there like that. That way we can clamp that either solid in the vise, or if we were running that on a router table, which we're going to, why that will sit there like that. Then we're going to take our first half, and now we're ready to route the bottom edge of this. Okay, don't use a dull router bit like I'm trying to do here. This router bit's been used to cut aluminum, and it's not doing a real good job. But nonetheless, we got the job done. There is the first half of the template. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this off, we're going to lightly sand it, and we're going to set the other half up and go ahead and drill our pilot holes for it. And then we'll clamp it to this piece, and we'll go through the same procedure again. Here's our first half. pin for the other half. And we're going to want our bolt for the other half, although I think we have to countersink the outside of it too, of this one. So we'll set that aside. I'll go ahead and repeat the procedure on this side. And this is all drilled in a drill press, so I'm going on the assumption that I've got everything at 90 degrees when I drill them. So I'm going to take this piece and drill it all the way through on both holes, 1/8 inch tooling hole and the 1/4 inch bolt hole. And then I'll have to countersink the other side, this top side of this part of the blank, because we'll have to bolt it through this side so we can flip it upside down on the router table. So let me go ahead and drill these, and then we'll start putting it back together. 1/8 inch tooling hole all the way through. And actually we can go ahead and leave that one in there. And it will be permanently affixed there now. This one will line up with that hole. And now we'll go ahead and drill our 1/4 inch hole all the way through and countersink the other side. Drilled, countersunk. Maybe that bolt will be long enough. Okay, then we can put our washer on, and we'll go ahead and route the outer edges just like we did on the first one. And we should be able to separate these. We'll have to open up this 1/2 of this dowel hole to get it to separate. We'll just run the next size drill bit in there, and that will take care of that. Maybe enough right there. Anyway, if we're careful when we realign those, go together just like that. Clamp them together. And I'm going to go back to the router table. Alright, here's our form blocks, or the next portion of the form blocks. Like I say, I was using the dull router bit, which did not help this purpose at all. I should have been better prepared and had a fresh router bit ready to go in that. I guess that's a bit that I used to cut quite a bit of aluminum, and it's getting awful dull. So the next thing with this, if I can get it back apart, still got that pin too tight. I need to open up that hole just a little bit more. There we go. So the next thing to do is we'll go back and add our 1/8 inch radius to the edges of this, and it'll be on the inside edge. We'll run our 1/8 inch radius here, and then we'll bevel the outsides of both of these blocks and add our flutes. And then we'll pretty much have a complete set of form blocks ready to go. So I'm going to end this video right here, and we'll pick this up in part 3, where we'll go back and finish these. But anyway, those are going to be a perfectly good set of nose rib form blocks. They match up pretty well. I've lightly hit the edge with a sander, and just to smooth out the really nasties and take any burrs that were on the edges so I don't get splinters. But anyway, relatively easy. Up to this point in time, I've probably got about an hour and a half into these form blocks from when we started drawing them to hour and a half to 2 hours, but that also is going to include the time I spent videoing, which takes up quite a bit of time. So anyway, hopefully that'll give you a little bit of inspiration and some ideas for your build if you're doing a scratch build. And any comments or suggestions, leave them in the comment section for me below. Thanks for taking the time to watch.